What does it really mean to be feared in the NFL? Not just respected, not just good. We're talking about players who made opponents hesitate, changed game plans, and hit so hard you remembered it for years. From sideline meltdowns to locker room fights, from violent hits to cold stares. This is the story of football's most feared players. The ones who didn't just play the game, they haunted it. Today, we're explaining every one of them in just 30 minutes. You'll want to stay till the end, because the scariest part, some of them, are still out there. James Harrison. If fear had a face, it might be James Harrison's. Broad shoulders, cold stare, a body that looked like it bench pressed trucks for fun. If you played in the AFC North during the 2000s, odds are he ruined your day. Harrison went undrafted in 2002. Too small, they said. But by 2008, he was the Defensive Player of the Year. He didn't rise by hype. He earned it on special teams, in the gym, and eventually in backfields across the league. His workouts became viral long before social media. Benching 400 pounds like a warm-up, pull-ups with chains. But it was the hits that told the story. In 2010, he delivered a brutal helmet-to-helmet shot on Mohamed Massaquoi, earning a $75,000 fine. Cost of doing business, he said. That year alone, Harrison racked up over $100,000 in fines. He didn't care. "I'm not dirty," he once said. "I just play violently." He retired, then returned, then retired again, and came back. "He's like a hitman," said Ryan Clark. "You don't hear from him until it's time." Off the field, Harrison was quiet, cold, calculated. Teammates respected him. Opponents feared being noticed. Mike Tomlin said it best. James would die on the field if it meant making a stop. The league's seen harder hitters. It's seen more gifted linebackers. But no one inspired physical fear like James Harrison. And if Harrison was fear made flesh, the next name was fear completely unhinged. A player who treated rules as suggestions, and every down like a fight waiting to start. The human red flag. Few players ever embodied chaos like Vontaze Burfict. He wasn't feared because of his talent. He was feared because you never knew what he'd do next. Undrafted in 2012 out of Arizona State, Burfict's rep already scared teams off. He was emotional, reckless, and once he got to the Cincinnati Bengals, it only got worse. In 2013, he led the league in tackles, but it wasn't the numbers, it was the way he played. Late hits, headshots, cheap shots. Even teammates winced. The moment that sealed his legacy came in the 2015 wildcard game against the Steelers. With the game nearly won, Burfict launched a helmet-to-helmet hit on Antonio Brown. Flags flew. Brown dropped. The Bengals unraveled. They lost, and so did Burfict. By 2019, he'd served the longest suspension for on-field behavior in league history. Fans were split. Some called him old school. Others called him dangerous. Reddit lit up with threads like "Ban Vontaze Burfict." One called him football's final outlaw. But even critics agreed. When Burfict played, you noticed, he made guys hesitate, made fans hold their breath. "You loved him if he was yours, me," said Pac-Man Jones, but everyone else hated his guts. The league is trying to clean this up, but Burfict showed us the thin line between aggressive and dangerous. And coming up next is a man who didn't just blur that line. He became something else entirely, a force who hit like a comic book villain and played with the soul of a preacher. Brian Dawkins. Brian Dawkins wasn't just feared, he was felt. Playing against the Philadelphia Eagles safety in the 2000s meant bracing for a collision you'd remember. Dawkins wasn't just a hitter, he was an experience. They called him Weapon X after Wolverine. And he lived up to it. He spoke about entering a different state on game day. "I black out," he once said. "That guy isn't me. That guy crawled onto the field during intros. That guy screamed, hit like a missile, and made slot receivers avoid the middle." What made Dawkins terrifying was how he combined emotion and violence. One moment, he'd be crying during the anthem. The next, he'd launch himself through a ball carrier's chest. In 2004, When the Eagles reached the Super Bowl, Dawkins was at his peak, the emotional engine of a defense that suffocated teams through raw intensity. NFL Films called him Fury with discipline. He never played dirty, but he played angry, and that energy spread. Teammates fed off it. So did Lincoln Financial Field. His hits were seismic. Ask Algie Crumpler, who had his ribs folded in half in an NFC title game. Or ask any quarterback who floated a pass across the middle. Off the field, Dawkins was quiet, a man of faith. But between whistles, he was one of the most violent defenders ever. You didn't play against Dawkins, said Michael Irvin. You survived him. He was inducted into the Hall of Fame in 2018, and his emotional speech stunned people. Dawkins opened up about depression, darkness. This feared enforcer had been fighting battles no one saw. In that moment, fans realized what made him truly powerful. Not just the hits, but the soul behind them. And just when you think it couldn't get more intense, the next man did it differently. He didn't talk, he just moved. And by the time you noticed, it was too late. Troy Polamalu. There's quiet, and then there's Troy Polamalu. Soft-spoken, gentle, humble, with long flowing hair and kind eyes. He looked more like a monk than a menace. But on Sundays, Polamalu was destruction in disguise. Playing for the Pittsburgh Steelers, he redefined what a safety could be. He didn't just react, he anticipated. He'd vanish from one side of the field and show up in the backfield, blowing up plays like he'd time traveled. His most iconic moment came against the Titans, when he leapt over the offensive line and tackled the quarterback before the handoff. That wasn't just a highlight, it was proof. You didn't see him coming. You just realized, too late, he was already there. Mike Tomlin once said, Troy's instincts weren't just elite, they were mythical. He freelanced, yet never compromised the defense. Coordinators stopped calling plays to his side. Quarterbacks gave up before the snap. Polamalu didn't intimidate with words. He prayed before games. He thanked players after hits. He was devout, respectful, and devastating. That contrast made him terrifying. If the nicest guy in football was coming for you at full speed, what chance did you really have? In film rooms, he was a riddle. Coaches couldn't game plan for him. Bill Belichick once said they built a special section of the playbook just to account for Troy. It wasn't just that he could be anywhere, he would be. He retired with 2 Super Bowl rings, 8 Pro Bowls, and a reputation that still echoes. Players don't talk about playing Polamalu, they talk about surviving him, like a boxer who got knocked out by a punch they never saw. He was graceful, never dirty, never angry, just everywhere. And now we shift from grace to chaos, because the next player didn't finesse his way into your nightmares. He forced his way in. Fear wasn't a side effect, it was the goal. Ndamukong Suh. When people talk about players with a mean streak, they're usually exaggerating. With Ndamukong Suh, it wasn't exaggeration, it was warning. From the moment he entered the NFL in 2010, Suh didn't just play football, he detonated it. Coming out of Nebraska, he was a generational talent, but fear came quickly. As a rookie with the Detroit Lions, Suh racked up 10 sacks, a rare number for a defensive tackle, and delivered a preseason hit on Jake Delhomme that made fans gasp. He wasn't just overpowering linemen, he was embarrassing them. Then came the post-whistle stuff. The 2011 Thanksgiving stomp on Evan Dietrich Smith got him ejected and suspended. Then came the fine for kicking Matt Schaub. Then the time he stepped on Aaron Rodgers' leg twice. By 2014, Suh had over $216,000 in fine and a reputation as the NFL's most dangerous man. And yet, he produced multiple Pro Bowls, All-Pro nods, a trip to Super Bowl 53 with the Rams, and a Super Bowl ring with the Buccaneers in 2020. The chaos never stopped him. Suh rarely showed emotion, never yelled. That may have been the scariest part, a machine programmed for destruction. There was no passion behind it, one lineman said, just cold violence. Some players lose control. Suh never did. He chose chaos and dared anyone to stop him. Next up, a player who didn't need size to scare you, just rage. Steve Smith Sr. If fear came in a small package, it wore number 89 for the Carolina Panthers. At just 5'9", Steve Smith Sr. played like a ticking bomb. And when he exploded, people got burned. From day one, Smith made it clear he wasn't there to make friends. He was there to fight. In 2008, he broke teammate Ken Lucas' nose during a training camp fight. After that, nobody tested him, not even teammates. He didn't just run routes, he challenged corners. He dared them to stop him. And if they couldn't, he let them know, loudly, aggressively. If you don't like it, he once said, stop me. In 2005, he led the league in receptions, yards, and touchdowns. But fear came from more than numbers. It came from presence. He'd block you 30 yards downfield, slam you, then ask if you were okay. Sarcastically, said Champ Bailey. After the Panthers cut him, he joined the Ravens and delivered a classic quote. "Put your goggles on, 'cause there's going to be blood and guts everywhere." Smith didn't need height. He had anger. Every catch was personal. Every hit came with a message. Rodney Harrison summed it up best. "Steve Smith was the only receiver I saw make defenders quit." Now, from angry receivers to defenders who made you regret ever catching the ball, the next player made fear hurt. Kam Chancellor. When Kam Chancellor stepped onto the field for the Seattle Seahawks, everything changed. The stadium got quiet. Receivers braced themselves. The middle of the field turned into a no-fly zone. At 6'3", 230 pounds, Chancellor wasn't just a safety. He was a weapon, a guided missile. As part of the Legion of Boom, he was the hammer. In 2012, he destroyed Vernon Davis with a hit that shook the stadium and set social media on fire. "Kam made you second-guess catching the ball," Davis said, "and you believed him." What made Chancellor scary wasn't just the hits. It was how he didn't celebrate them. He hit you, picked you up, lined up again. "He felt like steel," said Des Bryant. "He didn't bend, you did." In Super Bowl 48, Chancellor set the tone by blasting Demaryius Thomas on the first drive. The Broncos never recovered. The Seahawks overwhelmed them, and Chancellor led the charge. But Kam wasn't reckless. He was precise. He studied film. He anticipated routes. His power came with control. His leadership didn't come from speeches. It came from presence. He played through pain, led by example. And when a neck injury forced him to retire in 2018, it felt like an era ended. There will never be another Kam Chancellor, and the NFL, for better or worse, is a little softer without him. Now, from silent punishment to a man who let ego, power, and fear spiral out of control, next comes a cautionary tale. Albert Haynesworth. In 2006, Albert Haynesworth might have been the scariest man in football. By 2010, he was its biggest disappointment. Playing for the Tennessee Titans, Haynesworth was a wrecking ball. At 6'6", 350 pounds, he moved like someone half his size. He blew up run games, collapsed pockets. Quarterbacks didn't just worry, they panicked. Then came the moment that changed everything. In October 2006, Haynesworth stomped on Andre Gurode's unprotected face. Gurode needed 30 stitches. Haynesworth got suspended 5 games, the longest non-drug-related ban in NFL history at the time. The fear shifted. He wasn't just dominant anymore, he was unstable. Still, in 2009, Washington gave him a $100 million deal, one of the richest for any defender. What followed? A meltdown. He showed up out of shape, clashed with coaches, failed conditioning tests. "I play when I want to," he famously said, a quote that killed his legacy. Haynesworth had everything, but fear without focus is wasted. Within 3 years of that deal, he was out of the league. He had the tools, but monsters burn out when they stop caring. Now we move from wasted potential to a man who weaponized intelligence and made every throw a calculated risk. Ed Reed. If Ray Lewis was fire, Ed Reed was ice. Cold, calculated, and deadly. The Baltimore Ravens safety didn't just scare you with hits, he scared you with knowing. Tom Brady called him the best safety ever. Not for power, for deception. Reed baited throws, lured quarterbacks into false comfort, then pounced. "He tricked you," Brady said, and by the time you realized it, he was gone. He holds the NFL record for longest interception return, 107 yards, and had 9 career pick sixes. But it wasn't just production, it was process. Reed watched hours of film, studied eyes, not plays, tendencies. Bill Belichick once built a film room just to study how not to throw at Reed. That wasn't an opinion, it happened. And Reed wasn't just smart, he was fast, explosive. He'd cover half the field in a blink. Deep threats feared him, because if you weren't perfect, he was there. He didn't talk much, didn't show off. But when the moment came, Reed struck, and it was over. He didn't hit the hardest, but he hit when it mattered. And that's why quarterbacks feared Ed Reed more than anyone. Now we move from calm precision to thunder, because the next name wasn't a chess player. He was the storm that made you forget the game entirely, Sean Taylor. Some players leave fear, others leave silence. Sean Taylor left both. Standing 6'2", with linebacker size and cornerback speed, Taylor was something the league had never seen before. He wore the number 21 for the Washington Redskins, and when he stepped on the field, the entire stadium shifted. You didn't just see him, you felt the temperature drop. Taylor wasn't just physical, he was violent. The thing is, you could see it coming from college. At Miami, he built a mixtape of hits that looked like something out of a horror movie. Receivers braced before the ball even got to them. By the time he entered the NFL in 2004, he had already built a reputation as the league's next great enforcer, and he delivered. In just 4 seasons, Taylor became the heart of Washington's defense. But his legacy wasn't just built on tackles, it was the fear behind them. In the 2006 Pro Bowl, Taylor delivered one of the most famous hits in the history of an exhibition game, absolutely leveling punter Brian Moorman. It was supposed to be fun. Taylor didn't do fun, he did violence. But then just as his legend was rising, everything stopped. In November 2007, Taylor was shot during a home invasion while trying to protect his family. He died the next day. He was 24 years old. The league was stunned, teammates wept, opponents cried, and the NFL lost a player who in just 4 seasons had become one of the most feared and beloved defenders in football. He was the closest thing we had to a superhero, said Clinton Portis. Sean Taylor was more than just a hitter. He was a storm, a protector. And when he left, he took a part of the league's soul with him. But not all fear ends in tragedy. Some of it ends in rings, and the next player took precision, pain, and power and turned them into championships. Aaron Donald. There's a kind of fear that's loud, hits, screams, flying bodies. Then there's Aaron Donald. He doesn't talk much. He doesn't celebrate big. But when the ball snaps, you're already beat. At 6 feet tall, Donald doesn't look like a defensive tackle. But when you watch him move, it's like watching a machine from the future. Fast hands, low pad level, unstoppable leverage. From his rookie year in 2014, Donald made it clear he wasn't just good, he was different. With the Los Angeles Rams, he quickly became the most dominant defender of the decade. 3-time Defensive Player of the Year, 8-time Pro Bowler, over 100 career sacks from an interior lineman. Those aren't just accolades, they're absurd. Triple teams, game plans built around him. It didn't matter. Donald still got home, still caused chaos. It's like blocking a tank that does yoga, said one anonymous lineman. And in Super Bowl 56, with the Rams clinging to a late lead, it was Donald who ended the game. On 4th and 1, Joe Burrow had a man open, but Donald got there first. Game over, fear fulfilled. But what makes Aaron Donald scary isn't just the stats, it's the control, the technique, the fact that he could destroy you, but he doesn't need to showboat. He punches like a heavyweight boxer, said Andrew Whitworth. You don't even see it until you feel it. Donald doesn't need rage. He has discipline. And that kind of fear, the silent, steady kind, is the hardest to prepare for. Still, for all his power, Donald plays clean. That hasn't always been the case. The next name built his legacy on fear and infamy. Rodney Harrison. Before fines became standard and suspensions were weekly headlines, there was Rodney Harrison. And nobody wore the dirty player label with more pride. Playing for the San Diego Chargers and later the New England Patriots, Harrison built his name on one thing, pain. He hit high, he hit low, he hit late, and he didn't apologize for any of it. In a 2004 Sports Illustrated poll, NFL players voted him the dirtiest in the league. His response? Good, but Harrison wasn't a goon. He was a 2-time Super Bowl champion and one of the few safeties in NFL history with 30 interceptions and 30 sacks. He was everywhere, and when he arrived, people stayed down. He knocked out receivers, cracked ribs, and delivered more illegal hits than most guys have highlights. Ask Jerry Rice, who once said Harrison was the one guy he never looked forward to playing. He tried to take your soul, Rice said. When Harrison joined the Patriots, he brought the edge they needed. He led with anger, hit with purpose, and made sure opponents knew that if they caught a pass across the middle, they'd regret it. Ironically, after retirement, Harrison became a polished TV analyst. But players never forgot. Cleaned up on camera, but still a headhunter in my nightmares, one wideout joked. Rodney Harrison was fear in a different form, one the NFL tried to ban, but it couldn't forget. And from cold-blooded hits to cold-blooded humor, the next player smiled while ending drives. Terrell Suggs. Terrell Suggs laughed like a comic, played like a killer. Known as T-Sizzle, Suggs was the ultimate contradiction. Off the field, he was charming, hilarious, and full of one-liners. On it, he was a gladiator. Drafted by the Baltimore Ravens. In 2003, Suggs joined a defense that already featured Ray Lewis and Ed Reed, but he carved out his own legend. With over 130 career sacks, he became the Ravens' all-time sack leader and a playoff nightmare. What made Suggs feared wasn't just the numbers, it was the attitude, the unpredictability, the way he mocked quarterbacks after flattening them, the way he chirped at Tom Brady, calling him the pretty boy assassin. And yet, he backed it all up. He didn't just play hard, he hunted. In the trenches, he was violent, smart, relentless. But unlike most fearsome defenders, he smiled while doing it. And somehow, that made it worse. Suggs could sniff out screens, kill counters, and dominate tight ends in coverage. He wasn't just a pass rusher, he was a technician, a student of the game who made brutality fun. By the time he helped the Chiefs win Super Bowl 54, Suggs had played nearly 2 decades of violent, beautiful football, and he never once turned it off. "You laugh with him," said one coach, "and then you watch him destroy your quarterback." But not every fearsome player is a legend. Some become cautionary tales, or worse. Greg Hardy. There's fear on the field, and then there's Greg Hardy. For a brief time, Hardy was dominant. A Pro Bowl defensive end for the Carolina Panthers, with 15 sacks in 2013, he was on pace to become one of the league's most feared pass rushers. He was strong, explosive, and completely reckless. Offensive tackles hated lining up across from him. He had no off switch, said one NFC lineman, and that's what made him dangerous, and eventually gone. But Hardy's story didn't end with sacks. In 2014, he was arrested for assaulting and threatening to kill his ex-girlfriend. The details were graphic, the photos horrifying. Though the charges were eventually dropped when the victim didn't appear in court, the damage was done. The Dallas Cowboys took a chance. Jerry Jones called him a leader, but in reality, Hardy became a dark shadow on the franchise. He fought with coaches, he showed no remorse, and he delivered another chilling quote after a game. "Guns blazing, baby." By 2016, he was out of the league, blacklisted, untouchable. Greg Hardy showed us what happens when fear crosses a line, when violence becomes real, not metaphorical. He wasn't just a villain, he was a horror story. And with him gone, a question remains. Who's left to fear now? The game has changed. Rules are stricter, hits are cleaner, and those old school enforcers, they're gone. But fear, real fear, still has a place. Micah Parsons flies around the field like a missile with a brain. Max Crosby plays every snap like it's his last. Fred Warner diagnoses plays before they happen. They're smart, fast, relentless, but they're also clean. In today's NFL, you can be feared, but you better do it by the book. Some fans miss the gladiators, the chaos, the fury, but the league has made a choice. Protect the product, protect the players. And while the game might be safer, it's also lost something visceral, that primal edge, that fear you felt. Will we ever see another Ray Lewis, another Brian Dawkins? Maybe not. Maybe that era is gone for good. But fear hasn't vanished. It's evolved. Because the next wave doesn't scare you with violence, it scares you with precision, speed, and silence. And sometimes, that's even worse. From legends to cautionary tales, these players didn't just earn stats, they earned fear. Thanks for watching till the end. If you felt the hits, the chaos, the chills, hit that like button, subscribe for more, and tell us, who did we miss? We'll see you in the next one.